So in this session, we will learn to build advanced IoT devices with Bolt IoT and Arduino. So the hardware required will be the Bolt IoT module, Arduino Uno or Nano. Nano is preferred with the 80 mega 328P chip running at 16 megahertz, a few jumper cables, a breadboard, a few small LED bulbs, USB cable to program the Arduino board. For the software, you will need either the Arduino IDE or Platform IO with Visual Studio Code to program the microcontroller, and you will need a browser with HTML5 support. You should know some basic concepts before we proceed. You should know about the basic Arduino framework functions like the digital write, digital read, analog write, delay, and you should also know some web development basics like HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. What will we learn? We will learn a faster way to manipulate GPIO pins than using that digital write, digital read functions. We will not see the analog functions in this session. And we will also see how to handle time critical events like flashing a bulb periodically in parallel to running a code. Not actually parallel, it will be parallelish. So first we will take a look at the web user interface code. So here is a very simple HTML document. I've added an Apple Touch icon and then favicon. And the title I've set to Bolt Smart Home Control. I have 8 buttons. 4 buttons are to toggle the LEDs, and 4 buttons are to flash the LEDs periodically. This might be looking like a simple project, but as we'll see when we flash the LED, there will be some problems. So let me show the project schematic and so here is the project. We have 4 LEDs connected to 4 GPIO pins.
Hello, Raghav.
Yes.
You are sharing a presentation and along with another page, right? There is another device connected.
No, I guess I have. No, yes. I'm showing through a camera, right?
Okay.
Okay, so I hope that device is the project is visible. We have 4 LEDs connected to 4 GPIO pins on the Arduino, and the Bolt can send commands to the Arduino over UART communication to either turn on any of these LEDs or to flash them. Here is the schematic for the project. We have 4 LEDs connected to GPIO 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the Arduino. We have connected the UART lines to the bolt, and 5 volts on the bolt is connected to 5 volts on the Arduino, and ground is connected to ground, so that when we power the Arduino through the USB port, the bolt module takes power from it and turns on automatically. What is the problem? The problem is once any of the LED is flashing, the Arduino can do nothing else. It cannot even stop flashing the LEDs as it is stuck in an infinite loop. Since the Atmega 328P microcontroller, that's the chip on the Arduino board, on board our Arduino has a single core CPU, we cannot do more than one task at once. So once it's flashing, it cannot do anything else. So before we proceed, we need to learn about some bitwise operators. So what is bitwise OR? Bitwise OR means if there is a number, if there are 2 numbers, and if you do the bitwise OR, then every bit is every each bit is compared using this rule. if the every bit is compared bit by bit between those two numbers. So if the bit is 0 and let's say there are two numbers A and B, and if there are two numbers A and B, let's say A equals 0 1 and B equals 1 0. When we do the bitwise OR, we first see these two bits, and according to these rules, 1 or 0 must be 1. So the first bit becomes 1, and 0 and 1 must also be 1. So this bit becomes 1. So A bitwise OR B equals 1 1, and you can think about it like a circuit in parallel. Like I have the VCC or power supply connected here, I have two switches, and I have a bulb connected. If I turn on this switch, or I turn on this switch, or I turn on both these switches, the light will glow, so the result will be 1. But if the only way to turn off the light is to turn off both of the switches. So I hope you get it. Similarly with bitwise, and these are the rules. So if there are two numbers 1 0 1 and 0 0 0, and if you take the bitwise AND of these, what happens is 1 and 0 is 0, 0 and 0 is 0, and 1 and 0 is 0. So you can think about it like a circuit in series. The only way to turn on this bulb will be to turn on both these switches. If either one is off, the bulb cannot glow, right? Next. Next, we have the left shift operator and the right shift operator. Uh, Left shift the bits and positions to the left. So if I do 0 0 0 0 1 0 1 0, if I left shift all the bits by 1, then you can see every bit is shifted by 1. So this 0 was here, this went here, this 1 was here, it went here. All the bits are shifted to the 1 by 1, and there was one empty space that is always appended by a 0. Similarly with the right shift operator, uh, uh, the all the bits are shifted by n, whatever n is. If I'm doing this 0 0 0 0 1 0 1 0, right shift 1, then all the bits are shifted to the right by 1, and this last bit is discarded, it pops out. Next, how to set specific bits inside a register and memory location. So let's say I want to set the MSB to 1, the most significant bit. So first, so in the A memory location, I want to set the first bit to 1. So first I do 1 left shift 7. So the value of 1 left shift 7 will be 1 shifted by 7. So 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 zeros and 1, right? And when we do the bitwise OR with it, we know we see 1 or 0 is 1, 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 0 or 0 is 0, 0 or 0 is 0, and 0 or 1 is 1. So we have just changed this bit of this number using by doing a bitwise OR with 1 left shift 7. Similarly, if we need to turn that bit off, first we do the bitwise first we do the bitwise left shift 1 left shift 7. So uh, this number, so next we do the NOT of this number. So first we did 1 left to 7, so that will be this 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. Next we do the bitwise NOT. Bitwise NOT basically turns all zeros into ones and ones into zeros. It flips all the bits. So uh, this one becomes 0 and all these other bits becomes 1. And then we do the bitwise AND of this memory location A with it. So you can see 1 and 1 is 1, 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 0 and 1 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0, and 1 and 0 is 0. So we have, without changing any other bits, we have just turned this bit to 0. Next, here, so this is the Atmega 328P chip. This is the chip that is on the Arduino Uno and the Nano. So uh, on this chip we have three ports. Port D, which has this PD0, PD1, PD4, and then PV6, PV7, PV5, PD. I mean, these are the port. Sorry, these are port D pins. Next we have the port B pins and the port C pins. The digital pin 0 to 7 on the Arduino are all port D pins. Port D pins. Okay, I think we have the next slide for that. Yes. Not these. Then digital pin 8 to 13 are all port B pins, and these analog input, these 6 pins are port C pins. There are 2 extra pins on the Arduino Nano. There are 2 less pins on the Uno. So as I said, there are 3 ports on the Atmega 328P. Arduino Nano's Atmega chip package has 2 extra pins on port C for analog inputs. There are 3 port registers related to these ports. So DDR-X, where X can be port B, port C, or port D, this sets the pins as output or input. If you set a 1 to any of the bits of the DDR-X register, then those pins will become outputs. Next, port X register can be used to either turn on and off the output pins or enable the pull-up register on the input pins. Pin X register stores the state of the pins, whether they are high or low. Toggling a bit on the Pin-X register will toggle the state of the pin also, but that's advanced. So here we have port D register. For example, I've taken the port D register. So port D corresponds to digital pins 0 to 7 on the Arduino. Where port D0, this last bit corresponds to pin 0, and port D7 corresponds to pin 7. So if I said DDR to 0B means binary, 00000001, I am setting this bit basically to 1, meaning sorry, in this register. I'm setting, so, oh yes, similarly, the DDR0 corresponds to pin 0, DDR7 corresponds to pin 7, similarly here also. So basically when I'm putting DDR bit to this value, I am setting the pin 0 as output and rest other pins as inputs. Next, I have this port D is equal to this number. This number basically means that since this pin was set as output, then this pin will turn on, and since this pin was set to input, then putting a 1 here will activate the pull up register. So I've written that also pin 1 to 7 are set to input, pin 0 is set to output. Pin 1 input with pull up register is enabled by writing 1 here, and for output pins, writing a 1 here will mean turning them on. Port B and port C, as I said, pins 8 to 13 are controlled by port D. Sorry, it should not be port D. It should be port B. It should be port B. So pins 8 to 13 are connected to port B registers. Two leftmost bits are reserved in this register. Pins A0 to A5 are Pins A0 to A5 are accessed by port C registers. A6 and A7 are only available on the Arduino with Atmega chip in this TQFP32 package that is on Arduino Nano and Pro Mini. This is the chip. This is the TQFP package. You can just Google the port name on for your Arduino Uno or Nano, and you will get the information about which bits to change. So next, let's talk about system clock. System clock is a signal which pokes the CPU to execute the next instruction. It is what keeps poking the CPU to move on, right? It can also be used as a signal to increment our timer. We'll talk about timers in a further slide. With a clock of 16 megahertz, we get a clock pulse every 62.5 nanosecond, meaning our CPU executes the next instruction if it's a single cycle instruction. Okay, basically the next instruction every 62.5 nanoseconds it executes an instruction. So timers and counters. There are 3 timers on the Atmega 328P. That is a chip on Arduino Uno and Nano. Timer 1 is a 16-bit timer. Timer 2, 0 and 2 are 8-bit timers. Timers and counters are just registers. They're nothing special. Our register pair, as timer 1 is a register pair because it's a 16-bit timer, so it requires 2 registers. Every register on our microcontroller is 8-bit. So timers and counters are just registers or register pair that can increment every clock cycle. Okay, so they are referred to as timer counter, that is TCNT X. X can be 0, 1 or 2. With a clock frequency of 16 megahertz, each timer is incremented by 1 every 62.5 nanoseconds. The 8-bit timer can count up to 255 and the 16-bit timer can count up to 65,536 because that's the maximum values you can get with the 8 bits and that's the maximum value you can get with 16 bits, and after which it resets to 0. What is the prescaler? A prescaler is a piece of piece of hardware that divides the clock by a given number. For example, if clock was 1 hertz, very slow, normally timer counters would increment once every second. But if we put a prescaler of 8, Then a timer counter would increment once every 8 seconds, because you are dividing the clock by 8. So every clock, one clock cycle is considered as 1/8. So 8 clock cycles will be required for them to increment if you divide basically prescale by 8. Prescaling basically means dividing the clock. Preschoolers only affect the clock for the timer. The CPU keeps running on its clock frequency, i.e. 16 megahertz. Interrupts are what are interrupts? Interrupts are used to interrupt the processor while it is running a program to do something. The function that is called on an interrupt is called an interrupt service routine. So timer registers required to set up interrupts. So we have like TC and T registers. This is actual timer counter. The register that is incremented every clock cycle or prescaled clock pulse on prescaled clock. TIM is it's the timer mask register. This is where we configure the bits for our timer to enable interrupts. TCCR XA register, the timer counter control register. This is also used. These two are used to configure some things in the timers. And I think yes, this TCCR B register will be used for setting the prescaler, and I will talk about these in detail. Uh, OCR A and OCR B register, these are the output compare registers. Okay, we'll talk about them in a second. So first, let's talk about setting the prescaler. We can use the CS12, CS11, and CS10 bits in the TCCR 1B register to set the prescaler as seen in the table. So yes, these are the bits. We need a prescaler of 256. Why 256 we'll talk in another slide, but we need to set it to 256 for now. So first we initialize the TCCR1A timer counter control register 1A to 0, because we don't want any configurations from it. And we configure, we also set the TCCR1B register to 0, so that we disable everything by default, right? Then we need to do so to set a prescaler of 256. We just need to set the CS12 bit to 1. Rest all bits are set by 0, set to 0 by doing this. So then we do this. TCCR1B bitwise OR is equal to 1 left shift CS12. The position of the CS12 is already defined. You just have to use the CS12 macro. So basically you need to just write CS12, and it will be automatically shifted by 2 bits. This will actually resolve to 2. So basically this will set the prescaler to 256. Okay. So next. So next we have this register. Uh, timer timer counter mask interrupt mask register. Here is where we will enable our interrupt. We in this register we will set the output compare match interrupt enable A to 1. So as soon as the timer reaches the top, TC and that as soon as the timer, yes, this is the timer register. When it reaches the top, interrupt happens. So we will assign the top to the this register. So that basically we have set the prescaler. I will show the calculations in the next slide. So basically we want to enable an interrupt as soon as the value of the timer, which is increasing every 16 megahertz divided by 256, uh, uh, this many. So it was 16 megahertz with a prescaler of this. So our timer will be, this was the frequency, 1 hour frequency will give the period. So our timer will be basically incrementing every these many uh, every this much seconds. And basically what we want is, we want to set a value that when the timer value and that value called the top equals, we want to send an interrupt. The value that is to be compared with the timer all the time, and that will be on which the interrupt will be triggered, is stored in the OCR1A register. So uh, when when the timer counter 1 is 0, meaning it hasn't started counting or it has overflowed, it is called bottom. When it is at its max value, it's called maxed. If compared match mode is enabled, yes, we are. So basically, what the compared match mode is when the value in this register matches the timer value, we set an interrupt. Mm, So when the when the compared match mode is enabled, when the OCR1A value matches the timer value, an interrupt is set. Top cannot be given by OCR1B register. Top is always to be set by OCR1A register. So next we want to enable clear timer or compare match. So basically, why do we want to enable this is, let's say that we want the timer to count till 4,000 and throw an interrupt at 4,000, right? But once that interrupt happens, this timer should be again initialized to 0, so that it again starts counting from 0 to 4,000. So what CTC mode does is that we don't have to manually initialize the timer counter again and again to 0. What it does is, it clears the timer on compare match, automatically initializes the timer on an interrupt, a compare match interrupt. To enable it, we need to set the WGM 12 bit in the TCCR1B register to 1. So as you can see, according to this table, the WGM 12 bit is set to 1, then CTC mode is enabled. So that is what we need to do to enable it. So basically, we will again do a bitwise OR of 1 left shift WGM 12 or 3 basically. So to flash an LED every to flash an LED, we want to flash an every LED every half a second, or every 0.5 or every 500 millisecond. Our timer is incrementing every 62.5 nanosecond. Remember, this is millisecond ms and this is nanosecond ns. So basically, with no prescaler, that would mean that our timer, which is running with a 16 megahertz clock, will need to count up to 100,000, 10 lakh, 10 lakh, 80 lakh. Up to 80 lakh it has to count in order for the interrupt to happen, right? Because we want an interrupt every 500 millisecond. So yeah, and the timer is incremented every 62.5 nanosecond. So 500 millisecond divided by 62.5 nanosecond will give the number of interrupts. Like if it is confusing, then let's say we wanted an interrupt every 62.5 nanoseconds, then we would be dividing it by 62.5 nanoseconds. So we get 1, meaning we will be getting 1 interrupt every clock cycle. If we double this number, we will be getting, hello? So basically you get the point. If we double this number, we for every 2 clock cycle we will be getting 1 interrupt. Similarly, so that's how this comes from. So, but we cannot set this value our, to 80,000. We cannot set our OCR1A register, which is where which is compared with the timer counter to 80,000, because it cannot hold more than 65,536. So we need to pre-scale the clock speed. So we divided the clock speed by it was 16 megahertz. We divided it by 256. So the clock slowed by 256. So the time period also increased 256 times. The clock slowed 256 times. So the time period of the pulse, basically of the increment, increased 256 times, because time period is the inverse of frequency. So with a prescaler of 256, we just need to count up to 31,250. Yeah. So as the frequency decreases, time period increases. So is somebody saying something? So next. So let's see the code for this. So uh, no, this is yes. So basically, first we so basically in the project, what the project does is the Bolt sends commands to Arduino to either turn on one of these LEDs or to flash these, right? So I'll show the web interface also now in a minute, but first let's see the Arduino code. So basically, I'm using Platform IO, which is if you don't know, it's just like Arduino IDE, but it's a lot better. It's based on Visual Studio Code, so you're right. So if you use Arduino IDE, then also this code will work. You can just delete this line. I will give the code. I will give the link to the code in the chat box at the end. So first we define this mode. This mode will store whether we want to flash the LED or toggle it, or just uh, just uh, um, just flash it. So right, to or to stop flashing. This pin will store which pin that should be done. Then we have this volatile variable. What volatile means is that it can be used in our normal code and also inside an interrupt, right? So first, what I told about the data direction registers, right? DDR D corresponds to pin 0 to 7, right? And so basically by doing one left shift 4, one left shift 5, one left shift 6, one left shift 7, and doing the bitwise OR of these, and then doing the bitwise OR with the register, what's happening is that we are setting these pins as outputs. Basically, it's the same as if you have written pin mode function, pin mode 4 comma output, 5 comma output, like that. Okay. So next we set the counter control register 1A to 0, counter control register 1B to 0, because we don't want to we don't want any default settings. Next we set the uh, CS12 bit to on the TCCR1B. We registered to 1, so that we get a prescaler of we get a prescaler of 256, right? 256. So next, yeah, I hope it's visible. Next, so we have here, we said that we initialize the timer counter to 0, right? And as we saw, we need to set this OCR1A register to 1250. I think we have seen that slide. So I guess we have seen that slide. Yeah, we saw that we set the uh, OCR1A register to 150 because sorry, 31,250, because it is what will be compared with the timer counter, and the timer counter is descaled, right? What? I think the meeting is going on, right? So next what we have is that we enable the a clear timer on control match mode. Why we have enabled this? Because whenever there is an interrupt, we don't have to manually initialize the timer. If we don't add these lines, then we can do one thing, that on every interrupt, this is the interrupt service routine. I will talk about that in a minute. Either we can do, sorry, not yes. In that case, we have to do timer counter one equals 0 on every interrupt manually, but we don't want to do that manually. So we want that to happen automatically. That's why we are setting this bit. So basically it enables the clear timer on control match.
Hello,
Next,
Raghav.
yes,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Can you continue with sharing the screen instead of the video?
yes,
Because
yes,
it's
yes,
not clear. It could
yes,
be in
yes.
a low 720 pixel probably, so the letters are not visible.
Okay, okay, okay. Just a second.
You can come to Zoom and you can
Yes,
continue with sharing this content.
yes, yes, sure. This file. Where is the, so is it visible now?
Yes, it's completely clear now.
Okay, so I was there. Yes, so I said that since we don't want to manually reset this to 0 every time in our interrupt service routine here, we enable this CTC mode by setting this bit to 1. And next, we set the, what's happening? Next, we have this interrupt service routine, and we are catching this interrupt, which is timer one compare a vector. Basically, there are, as I said, there are two registers, OCR1A and OCR1B. So basically, you can use both of the registers to trigger an interrupt, but we are using only the first register, right? So that's why we have, when there is a compare match with A, that's why comp A vect we are using. So here we are declaring a static variable, and if you don't know, static variable is a variable that is alive even after the function is executed. So it doesn't reinitialize every time the function is called. Once this, even, no matter how many times this interrupt service routine is called, this variable will only be initialized the first time it is called, and then if it was incremented, let's say, then it will be incremented again and again and again. So it doesn't die uh, even after the function is executed, but it can be only accessed inside the function. So that is what a static variable is. And in case you don't know this, uint 8 underscore t, u means unsigned, int means integer, 8 means it's 8 bits or 1 byte, and underscore t means type, right? So we declare a static variable here in this interrupt service routine, which is just a function which is called whenever the interrupt is triggered. So in this, what we do is we do this static, we take a variable desired state, we set it to 0. Next, we do this. If desired state is 1, we do port D. Port D is responsible for controlling the pins on 0 to 7 on the Arduino. Port D or is equal to port D pins to be flashed. I will, we have initialized it to 0. We'll see in the further where it is initialized. So to turn on the, basically to turn on the LEDs, we do port D or is equal to port D pins to be flashed. And if it is not 0, if it is not 1, if it is 0, then we do port D and is equal to bitwise not of the pins to be flashed. So basically, if the pins to be flashed was something like this, 10000000, and we want to stop them from flashing, right? Sorry, in flashing, you have to first turn it on, then again on the next interrupt you have to turn it off, then on the next interrupt you have to turn them on. So let's say this is the state of the pin. Now I just want to turn on the turn off this one. So what I'll do is I will I want to, let's say, this is the, let's say this is the value of port D, and now I want to turn off this bit. So to turn, and the so basically what I can do is I can do an bitwise AND with this number, bitwise and ampersand with this number of port D pins to be flashed, and do a not of it. So basically, if let's say it was, if let's say, okay, to keep it simple, let's move all this. So, okay, so let's just treat this as a number for simplicity. So if I have this number 10000000, and I just want to turn off this bit, in that case, what I need to do is to do a bitwise AND of it with 0 1 1 1 1 1 right? Actually, it should be 8-bit, right? So if I do this, the result of this operation will be 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. So basically, to turn this bit off, I needed to do a bitwise AND with it of a number in which this, the corresponding bit was 0, rest all were 1. To achieve the same thing, we to achieve the same thing, what we do is, let's say if I wanted to turn this off, so first I will take the same number. Next, I will do the bitwise not, which will basically invert all zeros and ones. So this becomes 0 and rest of these become 1. So basically then we will be able to turn off this bit. I explained it just now also. So right, you get it. And yes. So basically this is how we turn on and off. And if it is looking confusing, you can always use digital write and digital read, but we are learning advanced stuff. So I don't recommend you use digital write and digital read because they are slow, but you can do a digital write and digital read for each pin also when if you are you can pass it as an array or something. And then we say desired state is equal to not of desired state. Remember, this is not the bitwise not. It will not invert all the bit. If it was 0, it will make it 1. And if it is 1, it will make it 0. Right? It's like Boolean. And Booleans and work the same. It is just like Boolean. I could even write bool here if I want, and that will also be the same thing. So what we do is, in the loop, we first, so where it is, yes. So this is our interrupt service routine. So next in the loop, if we see, so on the serial port, on the UART port, our Bolt IoT is connected to the Arduino. So this serial dot available returns how many bytes are available on the serial port, meaning if there is some data available or not. If this number is greater than 0, meaning something is received. So it prints receiving here, receiving on the console. Next, what is received, the way we send data, we first send the pin number. So pin number will be the serial dot read. Serial dot read will pick up only 1 byte uh, from the serial buffer, right? And so this is basically the value sent by Bolt. It will be the pin number. So why do we subtract it by 48? This comment is nonsensical. So basically we subtracted by 48 because the ASCII value of 0, character 0 is 48. Then for 1 it is 49, and on and on, like this till 9. So basically if I have sent a 0, I will receive 48. So I need to subtract 48 to get the number 0. If I have sent 1, I would receive 49. So 49 minus 48 will be 1. If I have sent 2, I will receive 50. 50 minus 48 will be 2. So that's why then we print the pin number. Uh, so basically so next we start a while loop, while true, meaning it's an infinite loop. If serial dot available is greater than 0, meaning if another byte is received, this will be the state or mode. The state can be either to toggle the pin that we sent the pin before. Next, after we need to send the state that do we need to toggle the pin, do we need to flash the pin, or do we need to stop the flashing? So these are the 3 things. T is for toggle, F is for flashing, S is for stopping the flashing. We receive the ASCII value in mode and we break. Next, we serial print mode and it will print the ASCII value. Now, I'm not subtracting 48 here because we don't need numbers. We directly compare it with the characters. And here also, I will not, I wouldn't need it to, no, here I will need because I need to calculate the pin number to set a pin, right? So here I need to do that, but here we received the ASCII value. We directly compared it to the character. So we don't need to convert here. Next, again, I make a variable called uh, desired state. Uh, So basically it contains, this is normal knot, right? We do pin D and one left shift pin, and then right shift pin. Let me explain this. What it is. So basically, I said that the pin D register contains the state of the pins, whether they are high or low. Just like you do with digital read, this is where the values are stored. So let's say the pin number 0 is low, sorry, pin number 7 is low, 6 is high, 7, just all are high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. So let's say these all pins are high. This is what the pin D register stored. It stores the state, whether the pin is high or low. So next what we do is we do, so let's say we want to check some pin. Let's say we want to check this pin number 2. So basically what we do is we first do one left shift 2, which will mean 1, 0, 0, right? And rest all will, as you know, be 0. We wanted to check that pin. Next, we do the bitwise AND. So all we get is 1 over here. If it was 0, we would have got 0 here only. And if it was 1, we would have got 1 only. And these all, regardless of what they are, will be 0, because 0 and anything is 0. So these will be zeros, and these will be zeros. Next, you can see the value of it is 100 in binary. But for the port, we just want a 0 or 1. So we firstly left shifted the 1 by 2, and now we'll right shifted by 2. And this could be 0 or 1 based on the state of the pin. And if it is 0, right shifting might not even do anything, but still we need to do it, right? So we right shifted. So we get a 1 or a 0 based on the state of the pin, and you can do it with any pin. Next, we do the logical knot. This is not the bitwise knot. This is a logical knot. So logical knot is does what is, if the value is 1, it turns it to 0, and if it is 0, it turns to 1. So why did we did that? Because we don't wanted the state, we wanted the desired state. If it is on, the desired state will be off, because we want to toggle the pin. And if it is off, the desired state will be on, right? Yeah. So if the desired state is 1, that means we want to turn on the pin. We do port D or is equal to, uh, we do port D or is equal to this one left shift pin, or if the desired state is 0, we do port D and is equal to not of one left shift pin. I hope you understood it by now. So if you want to flash the basically flash the pin, in that case, all you need to do is in the port D pins to be flashed um, variable, you do a bitwise OR with it, and you set that bit to 1, whichever pin is to be flashed. And once you do, oh, sorry, right? So you said you just need to make changes to the variable, and whenever that interrupt happens, here is where it will see that on every interrupt, the value of this variable will be checked, and based on that, the pin will either be flashed or not flashed, right? uh, if the pin if in this variable you have set a pin to 1, it will be flashed. If you have set it to 0, it will not be flashed. and you don't have to do anything, call any function. The interrupt will be called automatically. And since this is a volatile variable, we are able to access it inside the interrupt also, and also the normal code also, right? And then if the mode is equal to S, if you want to stop the interrupt, all you need to do is to, stop flashing of a pin, all you need to do is to set that bit to 0. And in that interrupt, you can see obviously that pin will not be flashed. And then when you are doing that, maybe that when you did this, maybe the pin was in on state. So to make sure that after we stop flashing, the pin is in off state, we do port D and is equal to bitwise not of one left shift pin, right? So this is the code required for that. So let's see what's next. Yes. So before the questions and answers, let's see the web interface. And I'm also giving the link for the code and all that. So wait a second, let me just program this. Let me just upload this code to the, and you don't have to use this platform IO. You can just put this code in the Arduino IDE and it will work there also. This just helps in editing the code and all that. It has no advanced, nothing special in it. So let me just upload this. Okay, so now let me switch to that. Okay, so I hope the so yes. So now I hope that this the video of the project and the web interface is also um, seen. So if I, okay, it's not responding for some reason. Wait a second. Let me restart the bolt. I guess there is some problem with it. Wait a second. Okay, so I forgot to show the code for the web interface before we start looking at it, and we'll see what is the problem. So basically, here I have these buttons. I had 4 buttons for toggling the LEDs and 4 for flashing, and all these had these on-click events. I think I should switch to screen share only till then. So yes, so I showed that there are 4 buttons for toggling, 4 buttons for flashing. Next, in the JavaScript, I have a toggle state whether these pins are toggled or not. So I have an array of 4 pins, and we are by default they are false. And are they flashing or not is stored in the flash state. Okay. Okay, I'm doing as fast as possible. So yes, so let request is equal to new request. I hope you know how to make the requests. Then I call the Bolt API to start that serial communication. Next, we send the request. Then once the request loads, we console log the response. And basically this request is starting the serial communication. And then we have this flash function. It does pin -4 because arrays don't start from 4. Array index starts from 0. So pin 4, 5, 6, 7 will be like pin 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? That's why I did this. Then flash state of array pin will be not flash state of array pin, meaning earlier it was not flashing, but now the flash function is called, so it will start flashing or vice versa. We do toggle state will be the not of flash state. So if something is flashing, it is definitely not toggled, right? So we invert the state of that also. Next, we send a request with the pin number. Next, once that request is sent and once it loads, we either set if the flash state is true, meaning we want it to flash, we send an F to the microcontroller, or if we want to basically stop flashing, we send an S to the microcontroller. Then we send this request. Right. And after sending this request, if the response.success is 0, we alert not responding. If it is 1, we do this. So let me show the CSS. So I'm not see. So here basically every element has ID light toggle 1, light toggle 2, similarly light flash 1, light flash 2. So basically what we do here is uh, we so the pin numbers can be 4, 5, 6, 7, but the class names are 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why we subtract 3 and document.get element by ID light flash 1, light flash 2, light flash 3, light flash 4. And if the pin is flashing, we set it to gold. We set the color of that to gold background color, or we set it to dark gray. Similarly, if the light is toggled, if the light and once we have entered the flashing state, we need to turn the toggle state to gray if it was already chosen, right? Because nothing the thing cannot flash and toggle at the same time. Similarly, we have here array pin is equal to array pin -4. We set the toggle state to not of toggle state, and we also set the flash state to the not of toggle state, because if something is flashing, it is not toggling and vice versa. Next, we send the similar request with a pin number. When it loads, we send a T that means toggle. If the request has succeeded, we set the light toggle of pin -3 to bold. And basically these light toggle 1, light toggle 2, light toggle 3, light toggle 4 are just IDs for for these buttons. You can see that here light toggle 1, light toggle 2, light toggle 3, light toggle 4. So we basically do this with the corresponding buttons, right? And yes, that's it. And for the CSS, we just uh, set the body to the full viewport height and width. We set the basically we set some background colors of the default background color of the button and all that using the CSS class. Then we put them in a flex box with spaced evenly, justify content, align items also stay spaced evenly, align content also spaced evenly. So and flex wrap to wrap, so that yeah, it to make it the web page basically responsive. So yes, so let me check with that web interface. So here's a practical demonstration for the project. Here we have light 1 toggle, light 2 toggle, light 3 toggle, light 4 toggle, and similarly for flashing all the lights. So as you can see, when I click on light 1 toggle, the light 1 turns on. I click it again, it turns off. I click on light to flash and it starts flashing. I click it again and it stops flashing. I click on light 3 toggle, it turns on. I click it again, it turns off. I click on light 4 flash and it starts flashing, and I click it again, so it stops flashing. Okay, so I will not try all of these buttons, because if I do it too many times so quick, then my API limit for the bolt will end, and I will not be able to make requests for like 6 hours. It's blocked, you know. if you make too many API calls. Okay, so as you can see, the project works. Thank you. You can try it yourself.